to have been asked by the Newtown Action Alliance to open this gathering with a prayer. 1 year after the Sandy Hook shootings, we Americans still live with an epidemic of gun violence that has claimed an additional, we estimate, 32,000 lives since last December 14th. So as we gather today to remember those children and those adults who died almost a year ago, we in the faith community pledge ourselves to redouble our efforts to make American classrooms and workplaces and streets safe for our children and our families and our friends. And today we pledge to begin that process again by taking on acts of kindness in the name of those who died. So let us pray. O God, you have spoken to us in Scripture of your abiding compassion for all who suffer at the hands of the violent. Make us instruments of your peace and strengthen our hearts and our hands and our minds not only to care for the victims and survivors, but to bring about change that will make an end to the violence caused by guns when used by the cruel, the sick, and the criminal. Remember, God, those who died a year ago at Newtown. May their souls rest in peace. Let light perpetual shine upon them, and may their families and survivors be strengthened and comforted by the abiding presence of your love. All this we ask in your holy name. Amen. Amen.
I'm Teresa Russo from Danbury, Connecticut. I'm here to honor my daughter Lauren, who was a substitute teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary School, killed last year. Lauren never touched a gun, and she had no experience whatsoever with gun violence before that day. I wish we could say that for all the children in America, and that's the purpose of Honor with Action. Please support it.
My name is Brenda Grisham, and I am here from Oakland, California. I'm here representing my son, Christopher Jones, who was murdered December 31st, 2010 at the age of 17, and we are here to honor with action.
My name is Devoria Williams from Oakland, California. I'm here because my son was gunned down October the 28th, 2012. And since then, I've been working with the Christopher Lee Lavelle Jones Foundation and Their Lives Matter to honor with action.
Hi, my name is Terry Marquez, and 5 years ago, I was shot in my head and partially paralyzed on the left side of my body, and I'm 12 years old now, and I'm here to honor with action.
Hi, my name is September Chatfield. I am the mother of Tyreek Marquez, who's a survivor of gun violence. Growing up in the urban community, we witness gun violence every day, but we don't honor with action until it lands on our doorstep. So I'm here with Newtown Foundation to honor with action.
Hi, I'm Aaron Black from New York City. I've been the victim of gun violence not once, but twice. I'm very lucky to be here, and I'm here to represent everybody.
My name is Tiffany Hardman. I'm holding a picture of one of the mothers who couldn't be here, son, but I'm on behalf of CV4C in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm here to represent my daughter, Ashley Hardman, who was gunned down 5 months ago, July the 2nd, 2013, at the age of 19 years old on summer break, and I'm here to honor with action.
Hi, my name is Stacy Hogue. I am from Oakland, California. I am here today with my sister, Sharon Hogue. Our brother, Cedric Gatson, was gunned down September 12th, 2009. And because of this, we are now with Their Lives Matter and the Christopher Lavelle Foundation, and we are here to honor with action.
My name is Marie DeLuce. I'm from New York City, Brooklyn, New York. This is my nephew, Pierre Paul Jean Paul. He was killed on November 11, 2008, shot in Cambria Heights, Queens, through the heart. And I am here to honor with action. I'm also a representative of Moms Demand Action for Gun System America, and I'm here with Newtown Action Alliance and the Coalition of Families. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Hardman. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I'm 15 years old. And the picture I'm holding up is of my 19-year-old sister, Ashley Hardman. She was gunned down 5 months ago on the summer break coming from school, where she just got her pharmacist tech. And I'm here to support because I'm honored with action.
Hi, my name is Ashaki Banks. This is my 7-year-old daughter, Heaven Sutton. She was gunned down June 27th of last year selling lemonade in front of my house. I'm here to honor with action. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Nunez from Chicago. My son was shot Halloween night, 2009. Set of twin boys behind. Never knew his wife was pregnant. Never got to see his daughter. Honor with actions.
My name is Tom Campbell. I'm from Connecticut. I'm here to honor my father, John, killed, shot to death, December 23rd, 1965, New York City. Honor with action.
My name is Tom Sullivan. I'm here from Centennial, Colorado. I'm here for my son, Alex Sullivan, who was murdered 74 Fridays ago, celebrating his 27th birthday on July 20th, 2012 in the Aurora Theater. I'm here to honor with action.
Hello, my name is Chandra Robinson. I'm here standing with Chicago Voices for Change and Newtown Alliance and all of the rest of us here. My son Dino Woodridge was 18 at the time, standing on his grandmother's porch. October the 18th of 2010, he was gunned down, and I am here to honor with action.
I am Patty Guastello. I live in New Milford, Connecticut, and I also live in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, where I am a member of Responsible Citizens for Gun Laws. I am not blood related to Olivia Engel, who was killed in Sandy Hook last year, but I have a generational relationship with her. Her grandparents and my husband and I were best friends. Therefore, my daughter Julie and her mother Shannon grew up together, playing dolls and planning to bring their children up together. My daughter Julie is Shannon's godmother, and Shannon is my grandson Landon's godmother. I'm here for the children and the young parents who fear every day for their lives because they are no longer safe in schools, parking lots, in stores. And I am here to honor with action.
Hi, my name is Yolande Corner. I'm from Chicago. I'm the mother and the grandmother. My daughter, Nova Henry, and her baby daughter, 10 months old, Ava Sophia Henry Curry, were gunned down inside of their home by a person who was a criminal defense lawyer, but yet had a rap sheet long as our arms. And through the loopholes and through slipping through background checks, he was able to purchase a gun and shoot them, and that was a part of domestic gun violence. So I stand here as a mother and a grandmother to ask our legislators and our lawmakers to sponsor a bill, pass a bill, and let us universally work together to make change happen. And I'm here to honor with action. No more silence.
Hello, my name is Angela Johnson, and I'm here to honor two incredible youngsters that lost their lives due to gun violence. One is Robert Allen, age 19, died June 13th in Chicago, Illinois. He would have been celebrating his first Father's Day 3 days later had he lived. And this young lady right here, Hydea Pendleton, who was also gunned down in Chicago. And she just left the White House performing for the inaugural ball, and it's just sad that we lost her so soon. And I'm here to honor with action.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Dave Ackert. I'm from Newtown, Connecticut. About 6 weeks after the Sandy Hook school tragedy, and along with about 100 neighbors from the Newtown area, we piled into buses, trains, and cars and headed here to Washington to help lead a march that was organized in response to what had happened in Newtown. Our experience at this march was profound and eye-opening. You see, many of the 5,000 people who had gathered at the Capitol that day, most of them clutching photos of their lost loved ones, they swarmed us. They hugged us. They cried for us. They offered us condolences. They were comforting us. And that hit us like a ton of bricks. It couldn't have cut more clearly through our collective blissful ignorance to the fact that what happened in Newtown can and does happen everywhere. We were awakened that day, pulled out of our own misery and shock by the realization that gun violence is a national epidemic, impacting people of all backgrounds and communities everywhere. The Newtown Action Alliance and the Newtown Foundation, they were born right then and have been working to help transform the tragic loss of more than 30,000 American deaths each year to inspire and empower more people to honor with action and to ensure that those killed by bullets did not die in vain. And so here we are, almost a year later, our 5th trip to Washington. On each trip, we're joined by more and more people from across America. We're honoring with action together people who are committed to making changes that reverse the gun violence epidemic. Our pleas getting louder and louder. The vast majority of Americans want change, and yet the carnage continues. 30,000 new families mourning a loved one annually. Why? Because too many of those elected to protect us look the other way. Politics and paranoia-driven profits prioritized over the pain and suffering of people, human beings. Tomorrow afternoon, people of all faiths and backgrounds from across America will gather to remember and to honor the lives, all the lives that have been taken by an act of gun violence. Just before 3:45 at the Washington National Cathedral, the bell will toll 30 times, once for every 1,000 deaths that have occurred since the shooting in Newtown. Prior to the vigil tomorrow morning, hundreds of us, people from Newtown and communities across America, will bring comfort to those in need by performing acts of kindness and service across the District of Columbia. Our national elected leaders have been invited to perform acts of kindness in honor of everyone who's died from gun violence, including their own constituents. Again, we'd like to invite them to please join us, to rise up with us and resolve to honor with action tomorrow, in the new year, and beyond. Thank you to all of the clergy members and to the elected leaders who stand here with us. And thank you to everyone who's committed to ensuring that none of the lives lost to gun violence are lost in vain. And thank you to everyone who resolves to honor with action. Now, I would like to invite one of our great senators who's on the right side of history, Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy.
Well, thank you very much to Newtown Action Alliance, the Newtown Foundation, to all of the families who are here today. Those of us who fight this battle in the legislative trenches just stand in awe of the families represented here and, frankly, thousands of others like them who, at the same moment that they are grieving, are also coming here to Washington, going to state capitals and to town halls to advocate for legislative change. That takes a kind of courage that I don't think anyone can understand unless you've been in their shoes. And first and foremost, we have great sorrow for your loss, but we have great admiration and take great inspiration from your strength. This should be a week of remembrance across Connecticut and across this country, but it should also be a week of great embarrassment in Washington, D.C. 365 days since 20 little 6- and 7-year-olds were killed in Newtown, Connecticut, along with 6 educators who protected them. 365 days when, on average, each single one of those days, 30 people, most of them 16, 17, 18-year-olds, are being killed on our streets all across this country. This week is a week to remember, but this is also a week for this place, Washington, D.C., to feel a little bit of shame over the fact that nothing has been done during that time. It's December, so there's cold hands in Washington. But I'm going to be honest with you. There are a lot of cold hearts in this place if Congress can't respond to the stories that these families have brought here day after day, week after week. This is a week also to remember that it's action that makes a difference, legislative action, but also action in the way that we all live our lives. And I just want to share my few minutes up here, just one story to tell you why little things do matter. And it's a story that goes back to December 14th of last year. Daniel Barden, one of the little boys who was killed that day, did something exceptional that morning. He always got up for school as late as possible. So that by the time he got up, his older brother had already left. So he never really got to see his older brother in the morning. Well, something different happened that morning. Daniel Barden got up earlier that morning on December 14th than he had gotten up any other morning that year. Early enough so that he saw his brother walking down the street, walking down the driveway to catch the bus. Early enough so that for the first time all year, he ran down the driveway, gave his older brother a hug, and said goodbye. His older brother never saw Daniel again, and nothing can ever bring peace to the Bardens. But that small act of kindness that Daniel undertook that morning made a small but meaningful difference for the Bardens. Think about how many times we can just give that one additional hug, do that one additional nice gesture, and it will never make up for a lack of action here in Washington, D.C., but we can memorialize those that have been lost in a lot of ways. And little kids like Daniel Barden, as well as the kind acts of so many people whose pictures are displayed here, can paint us another, just as meaningful way forward.
Thank you, Senator Murphy. Reverend Henry Brown is one of the founders of Hope Street Ministry in Hartford, Connecticut. He is known by many in the Hartford area as the face of Mothers United Against Violence. Reverend Brown and members of his group have gathered for hundreds of peace rallies and vigils at the over 300 sites of homicides or violent crimes in Hartford since 2003. Reverend Brown's special dedication to ending gun violence began much earlier in life. On a January night in 1972, he was celebrating his recent discharge from the U.S. Army with family members when he saw a flash and realized that an earlier argument that he helped break up was not over. After a month in a coma, he spent many years dealing with the anger and depression caused by that shooting, an experience that would forge him into a fierce advocate to promote for peace and reduce gun violence in all communities. Reverend Brown.
Good day. Yes, I am a victim of gun violence. But today I'm here to honor the victims all across America. January 29th, 1971 was a very difficult day for me. After that shooting, I was left in a distressed state of anger. I was withdrawn, depressed, and love, and most of all, I was scared. On the positive side, that shot was the beginning of a changed life, though I didn't recognize how much until much later. 30 years later, July the 4th, 2001, through another act of violence in Hartford, I began to discover my purpose in life. The year before, 2000, we had 19 homicides on the streets of Hartford. Now, in just over half a year, there had been 19 homicides. Then on that July day, on the front page of the Hartford Current, I saw the bullet wound face of little 7-year-old Chakara Gaston, an unintended victim of a rolling gunfight between rival drug dealers. I decided something had to be done. I asked a group of mothers who have lost their children to gun violence to meet with me so with God's guidance, we could take a stand and speak out against the violence on our streets. On November 14, 2002, Mothers United Against Violence was founded by that group of brave women and men. Since its founding, Mothers United Against Violence has seen 314 homicides in Hartford, 80% of them committed with guns. Hartford, like many other cities, has experienced what we might call a massacre by accumulation. Most would recognize an average of 26 homicides a year as a massacre. We have held anti-violent marches and rallies attended by hundreds of people from Hartford and other communities in Connecticut, carrying 300 crosses bearing the name of victims lost to gun violence. We also gathered in prayer vigils requested by the families. Working in coalition with similar groups to ours in New Haven and Hartford and Bridgeport, we are witnessing the pain and grief of mothers and families who mourn the death of their innocent young people gunned down in Connecticut's inner cities. Mothers and families of our organization can't be here today because of work and family responsibilities. If they were here, they would say, we don't want any other families to pay dues we have paid to belong to this organization. They would say, stop the violence. Stop the killing by any means possible. We look to the day that our city and the cities throughout our country will be free of the violence that make parents fear to have their children playing in the street, where families will be able to walk through their neighborhoods or to the local grocery store without the anxiety of gunshot ringing out down the block. We know that working in coalition with other communities and groups is essential to the process of finding solutions, everything from job and better education to community working with both city administration and law enforcement. We grieve with all those who have felt the personal impact of gun violence in their community, urban and suburban. And we say to them, no one knows your pain and grief better than Mothers United Against Violence, who have lost over 300 loved ones over the past 10 years. And yes, I am here to honor with action. I want to introduce to you a man that has a great meaning in my life. Past years, we have been connected by what he called to the hip. On October the 20th, 2012, he lost a 20-year-old son to gun violence. I would like to present to you Reverend Sam Saylor.
Good afternoon. I'm the father of a slain young man, a son who on the 20th of October of 2012 became the 20th victim in the city of Hartford, killed by a 20-year-old at the age of 20. It was a beautiful day for me, but it became a day when I learned about the cost of living. As a pastor, I enjoyed our annual cake fest, and we enjoyed it. And I was feeling so good, I went home and I was going to retire to sleep till I caught a call from his mother, a frantic call that said, Shane is gone. Shane is gone. They took my baby away. My mind had to catch up with the words. I didn't want to hear it. I rushed to the hospital to find my son laying lifeless on a bed. I prayed to God. I tried to get one of those Lazarus experiences. I felt as though I paid my tithes. I was a pastor. I dedicated my life to God. I had favor with God. I needed a favor from God that day. God didn't deliver a favor that day. He didn't answer my prayers that day. I was left with anger and disappointment in the God that I had so much hope in. Didn't know why I had to go this way. Just 2 weeks earlier, I told Reverend Brown, I'm getting off of this parade of pain. Woman bashed with her head bashed in, left lifeless on the I didn't want to see this anymore. Couldn't understand it. But here I am now in the middle of it, understanding the pain of a father and a mother, the loss of a mother, loss of a father. It is a pain I hope none of you ever experience. None of you ever go to a sifting situation where you're left lifeless while still living. But here we are today, surrounded with the resolve of a living hope. I found that just a month and a half later, folk in Newtown would experience what I experienced. The world with eyes would open, the scales would fall from the eyes of the world, and they would see the enemy that lurches at our door, the evil that wants to crouch at our door and wants to break down our door and take over our lives. God told Cain, evil is crouching at your door. Do something about it, Cain. God is still telling us today, do something about it. Master it. And I'm so happy to be, for the last year, serving with people who have put aside their pain and picked up a resolve to try and shed a living hope to try and bring back our city, our country, to a place where our children can go to school and learn the mystery of 2 + 2. And I'm here to honor with action a son that was fallen by assassin's bullet, but life continues to live in the resolve to do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. I'd like to introduce now another one of our great senators, also on the right side of history, Senator Richard Blumenthal.
Thank you to all who have participated in organizing and attending here. This ceremony will certainly stay with me, and your voices and faces are certainly much more eloquent than anything that I could say. But I want to thank you for your courage and your strength, as I have the families of Newtown who have been so resilient and resolved in coming to Washington and really using their tragedy as a way to change history, to transform our nation, to make it better and safer. I have on my wrist a bracelet that I have worn for the past year. And it says, "We are Newtown, we are love." We are love. We are here because of love. And we are not going away because of love. Because we love the children and loved ones who have perished and want to prevent more deaths and tragedy. I went to Newtown on the afternoon of December 14th because I felt a responsibility as a public official. But what I saw was through the eyes of a parent. The love and grief and pain that was so searing and changed Connecticut and the nation. Not overnight, not in an afternoon, not in one vote. We lost that first vote, but we will not lose the last vote. We are not in any way giving up or surrendering or retreating. I'm often asked, what happened? Why didn't you succeed? And the answer is, we haven't failed. We are refusing to fail in the effort to make America safer. We haven't succeeded so far because of politics and paranoia. The paranoia of people who think mistakenly that we want to take guns away from law-abiding Americans. It's their legal right. The Second Amendment gives them that right. But the politics here have been exploitive because politicians have exploited the fear for their own ends. And we refuse to let that happen in the last vote when we will win and make America safer. These acts of kindness will inspire America again, not just for what they do to aid individuals, but what they help people understand about your love for people who are alive and your effort to keep them alive. The lesson of today is every individual can make a difference. Every individual is precious, and each of us can help save lives by acts of kindness and by acts of political courage. There have been profiles in courage. There have been profiles in cowardice, and we're going to make sure that the profiles in courage at the end of the day carry this fight and make us successful in building a kinder and gentler America that preserves lives and keeps love alive. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to call up Carlos Soto. Carlos lost his sister, Victoria, in the Sandy Hook school tragedy. She was one of our dedicated, brave, heroic teachers. Carlos.
My sister Vicky was a first grade teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary. On that Friday morning, she was going to make gingerbread houses with her students. Before they can make gingerbread houses, gunshots rang out. She didn't know what to do, but she did what she could. She protected her kids. I stand here because there have been over 32,000 gun deaths since Newtown. We need to remember all the victims lost. If you have kids, I want you to think about your kids opening presents on Christmas morning. There are 194 kids that will not get to open presents this Christmas morning because they were killed by a gun. We are here to honor. We are here to remember all of the victims who have died for gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Congressman Mike Thompson from California is a gun owner who enjoys hunting. He's also a father and a grandfather, and he is the chairman of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force in the House of Representatives. Congressman Thompson.
Thank you all very much for being here, and thank you for inviting me to join you. It truly is a high honor to be standing amongst so many very brave people who have taken their time and devoted their life's work to making sure we can make some changes. Listening to these stories today was incredibly powerful, and I couldn't get out of my mind the thought of the sight of me today putting my granddaughter, who had come out to visit me for a couple of days, on an airplane to go back to California, and to think just the thought of not being able to ever see my granddaughter again was, I couldn't imagine the times that these folks are experiencing and the tremendous weight upon their shoulders, and to be able to come here and meet with us and to continue to do with this is just incredibly brave. And we've heard time and time again that in the 1 year since Newtown that there's been 33 people a day killed by someone with a gun, over 10,000 people murdered by someone with a gun. And those are staggering numbers, and everybody should be staggered to hear those numbers. But the fact of the matter is, behind those numbers are the faces of real people. And their family members who come out to talk about them tell a story that no number can tell. These are sons and daughters and husbands and wives and brothers and sisters and grandchildren, and it's time that we do something. It's time that we get something done. And Chris was absolutely correct when he said that this is a shameful time in Washington to let a year go by without accomplishing anything to make the lives of our citizenry safer and to make our communities safer. And it's not I don't think it's a function of cold hearts. I think it's a function of cold feet. And it's time that we get this stuff, this legislation passed, and that we bring about some comfort to the folks who are here today and the thousands of folks across the country who have similar stories to tell. It's time that we put into action our words. It's time that we get beyond this stalemate and we put in place whatever we can legislatively to make our communities and our children's and our family safer. So I want to thank you all for the great work that you're doing. And as I said, I'm just very honored to be able to stand amongst so many brave people.
Thank you, Congressman. Rabbi Stephanie Aaron has been the spiritual leader and rabbi for Congregation Chavarim in Tucson, Arizona for over 30 years. She regularly leads trips to Poland and Israel as part of the International March of the Living, a program which seeks to rid the world of prejudice, intolerance, bigotry, stereotypes, and violence. She has long been a pillar of strength in her community, especially since the January 8th, 2011 shootings in Tucson, which included injuries to a member of her own congregation, Representative Gabby Giffords. Rabbi Aaron?
Each of us arrives in this place at this moment with a personal story of gun violence that shapes and defines who we are. I was an 11-year-old girl happily sorting out the geography of a continent, Africa, It had been reduced to an 8.5-11 piece of paper, and our teacher, Mr. Dorn, was helping us navigate the Nile River when a voice on the intercom system suddenly summoned all of the teachers to the office. We sat in a shocked silence that reverberates to this day, for it is the stillness of before. Life before it is shattered by the bullets fired from a gun. Our teacher returned to the room, and the world toppled when he said, "Boys and girls, the president's been shot." I was a girl. Our president, John F. Kennedy, was gunned down, doing his job, being the president. Did this prepare me 30 years later for when, as a rabbi, I held the hand of a father whose 19-year-old daughter was shot and killed by her boyfriend in a moment of rage? Or to stand with the citizens of my town, Tucson, when our Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot down doing the job she loved, meeting with people at Congress on your corner. 6 of the citizens in our town were killed that morning, and so many were wounded. Or did this prepare me to pray and mourn with the families of Newtown across the many miles that separate our 2 towns, physical miles, but not soul miles, not heart miles, for we are instantly connected by the breath of prayer. Our teacher, Martin Buber, wrote, "We are held and upheld by common remembrance." The act of gun violence brought us here. We each remember last year where we were, what we were doing, when we heard, when we knew that life in another town, Newtown, was shattered. We remembered our town, our Tucson, January 8th, 2011, our town shattered, stunned, grieving. Our town courageous, holding one another up, drawing one another together. Our town praying, encouraging, being with one another. Our town today, strong, moving ahead together with kindness on our minds, civility and respect in our hearts. We are Tucson. We are Newtown. We are Hartford. We are Chicago. We are New York. We are Aurora. We are Washington, D.C. Some of us are children. Some of us are the elders of the community. Some of us are the runners, others the bench sitters and dreamers. We are babies and buddies, dog walkers and old folks. We are piano players and poets, friends and strangers. We are workers and students, elected officials and volunteers. We are builders, bakers, artists, and actors. We are firemen. We are firewomen, policemen, policewomen, and members of Congress. We bellow, we bicker, we laugh, and we love. We are all races and every religion. We are Tucson. We are Newtown. We are all towns. God said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses our teacher, "Take off your sandals from your feet, for the place on which you stand is Admat Kodesh Hu. The place on which you stand is holy ground." The Chofetz Chaim, one of our revered sages, said, "We need to rise higher in goodness. Never say, I will be able to lift myself up, but at another time, in another place. No, the place that you are standing on is holy ground. It is available now. Strive to rise up." We are here to lift each other up, to notice the holy ground that we share in this town, in every town, in this country, in all countries. This is our holy ground. This is our home. Our American poet Carl Sandburg wrote, "I believe in getting up in the morning with a serene mind and a heart holding many hopes. As we look around this city, our capital city, may we look at each other with serene minds and hearts that hold many hopes. This is our time to shout out about what keeps us close, our shared humanity, our shared visions of hope, kindness, and compassion for all of our towns. President Lincoln said, "I shall do nothing in malice, for what I deal with is too vast for malicious dealings. We share in his vision. We will do nothing that is hateful, mean, or cruel. We shall do nothing in malice, for what we deal with is too vast for malicious dealing. We are citizens of Newtown. We are strands in the braided Havdalah candle of peace, thoughtfulness, kind-heartedness, courage, fairness, and hope. Newtown is hope, peace, and love. Newtown is kindness. We are all Newtown. We are all towns.
Thank you, Rabbi. Connecticut Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty's district includes Sandy Hook. Elizabeth serves on the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force in the House of Representatives. Elizabeth?
We are united here by pain and loss. We are united here by grief. But we need to leave here united by love, by kindness, and honoring by action. When you look at these extraordinary people holding pictures of their extraordinary loved ones, each and every one precious. And sometimes we talk about loss, unimaginable loss. Our child was lost. These children were not lost. They were ripped from us. It is our country's loss. It is a loss we must heal. And there is only one way to do that. We must act. And our being united together, whether it is Hartford or Chicago or Newtown or Washington or Aurora, we need to be united in our resolve, in our love. You know, the scripture says, faith, hope, and love abide, but the greatest of these is love. And that is so hard right now. You can hear the righteous anger, and there is reason for righteous anger with the slaughter of our innocents, of our children, the loss to our country as well as to ourselves. But we have the power. We have the power united together. We have the power of action in a democracy. We have the power of the love for our loved ones that we can change. We can stop this scourge. And so this week, in a time of remembrance and reflection, in truly the darkest days of the years, in the dark days of the soul that we face with a very, very difficult anniversary coming up on this Saturday, I hope we can all resolve that we will take that righteous anger, that pain, that grief, in the way that the families of Newtown, that these families have found that courage, have tapped into that with love. So please mark this week with action, and mark the future with action and love and change. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Julian Nunez is from Chicago. At age 7, his 2 brothers were shot, one of them fatally. Julian?
Good afternoon. My name is Julian Roman Nunez. I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. When I was just 7 years old, we decided to go trick-or-treating because it was Halloween. After trick-or-treating, my brothers decided to go watch a race. On the way back, they decided to stop and buy some soda from a gas station. When they pulled out of the gas station at a red light, someone began shooting at them for no reason whatsoever. One of my brothers, Damien, was shot in his shoulder and my other brother, Manny, in the neck. Our lives changed forever. Manny died 5 weeks later. Damien survived. I don't know where we would be if we lost both. Losing Manny was horrific. A part of us died when this happened. I looked up to him. He was a great brother and an amazing dad. Manny had 2 twin boys, Julian and Jaden, and his wife was 5 weeks pregnant. My niece Imani is now 3 years old. And I find this kind of sad because my two nephews were 3 years old at the time. And when you hear a 3-year-old crying, you would expect them to be crying because they didn't get the candy that they wanted, not because they loved their father and they lost him. And sometime at my school, all of my friends and me were outside during recess. The younger kids had to go in first because they were younger and they had less time. And someone started shooting right after we went in. There was gunfire and my cousins were out there. Thankfully, no one was hit that day. And I don't know what we would do if we lost them too. I wish I can go to the gas station and buy soda. I wish I can go to school and feel safe. I wish we can play in parks without worrying, not just in Chicago, but in all of the nation. I just want a chance for my nephews, my friends, and all children to grow up without fear on the streets. How hard is it and difficult should this really be? It takes time and determination. One of my sayings is that you should turn your sadness into determination, and that's what most people do in the Chicago Citizens for a Change, which is some of the people behind us. Same with the Newtown Alliance, and same with anyone in here. Everyone turns their sadness into determination. All you need to do to stop gun violence wherever you are in the nation is use common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Reverend Kenneth Samuel is Senior Minister of Victory for the World Church in Stone Mountain, Georgia. He ordained into ministry at the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, and he has worked to promote peace, seek justice, and reduce violence through his ministry, and has held numerous leadership roles in local, regional, and at a national level. In June of 2012, Reverend Samuel had just concluded a funeral service in his church for a young man killed by gun violence when 2 more young people were shot outside his congregation's sanctuary. He believes that tragedies like the one that occurred in his community are why people of all faiths must come together in coalition with public safety officials and elected officials to stem the rising tide of youth violence, particularly in the African American community. Dr. Samuel.
This season, Christians around the world are celebrating the advent of Christ. And this season, we are also honoring the homegoing of Nelson Mandela. And this season, as we celebrate the advent of the Prince of Peace and the homegoing of a drum major for peace, this season, coming and going, God is reminding us over and over again that this is a time when we must all dedicate ourselves fully, completely, and compassionately to embracing peace in our personal lives and advancing peace in every public sector. Those of us who live, work, and worship in communities that have been ravaged by gun violence, plagued by the proliferation of wanton homicide, we know that this must be a season when we find better ways to resolve our differences than through gun violence. The 3 sets of families who now mourn the deaths of 3 young African-American men felled by gun violence in my community, 2 of them shot in gunfire at the funeral of the 3rd, who was himself killed by reckless gunfire. Just after I had done the eulogy, these 3 families and the families that surround me on the platform today, we understand that this must be our season for peace. All of us who have been touched by violence, we understand that now is the time to stop shooting and start talking. This is the season when we must realize that the investments that we make in education, the investments that we make in mental health services are much greater and will return much greater dividends than the investments that we make in urban neglect. This is our season, brothers and sisters, for peace. from the city to the suburbs, from rural to urban, from college campuses to elementary school classrooms, from church parking lots to city streets, from Atlanta, Georgia to Newtown, Connecticut, and across the nation, we all know that this is indeed our season for peace. And we're not just going to sing about it and talk about it. We are resolved to make it a reality in our lives and in our communities. We will not stop mobilizing. We will not stop marching. We will not stop advocating until peace becomes a reality in this society. We will advocate. We will demonstrate. We will celebrate. But we will also legislate and we will agitate, because there will never be any peace for some of us until all of us have a seat at the table of brotherly and sisterly love. This is our season to honor with action.
Thank you. Police Commissioner Joseph Bale is currently the police commissioner for the city of Chester, Pennsylvania, where he has been employed for 42 years. He's a certified instructor in several fields and has lectured to national and international special operations personnel. He has also presented at several educational institutions focusing on school violence and preparations for terrorist events. He also recently co-authored the book, Shoot Her Down, which is about the police response to the 2007 Virginia Tech massacre. Commissioner?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm honored to have been asked to speak at this memorial, along with the victims' families and the honored guest. But I realize that the people from Newtown Action Alliance have given me a unique opportunity to memorialize the past victims and help lead the way to ending this senseless cycle of violence. During my 42 years as a police officer, I've walked through far too many gun violence crime scenes. I've watched the grief of families, never really fully understanding how they felt, even though I'd had a police officer die in my arms. Many people only see a police officer after the tragic event. But I'm here, and there's many more like me, tell you that when we're on those scenes, we can feel the pain. I come from a small town of 34,000 people, and to date this year, I've had 21 murders and 91 people shot. My officers have taken 196 guns off the street, many of them multi-gun incidents. Every year, politicians and police officers all across this United States, and just regular people, have their own versions of Sandy Hook, Virginia Tech, Aurora, Washington Navy Yard, and too many more. While Newtown's tragedy occurred in several hours on a single day, the sense of grief and loss throughout these other urban communities last all year long, continually. Throughout my career, I've always found that the victims' families tend to feel that their loved ones are going to be forgotten. We are here to let you know, the survivors know, that we will not forget your loved ones, not now, not ever. Many people witnessed the YouTube video of the Pennsylvania police chief firing his automatic weapons in an AK-47. He has an absolute right to act like a fool for the virtual world. But, ladies and gentlemen, he is not representative of the professional police executives in this country. The Second Amendment never stood for the right to be and show stupidity and arrogance. This is the 21st century. We've got the literacy, we've got the intelligence in America to make changes, to protect our citizens, and in doing so, we will honor these victims by that change. I've traveled all across the world as a law enforcement consultant. I've been in Russia, Malod, Israel, Mumbai. And I've learned a lot to help police in this country deal with such events and mitigate these problems. But what I also realize that American police have to be here to assist you in your causes. It's groups like everyone assembled here today that will make the difference in the long term and result in peace in our future. We will remember the victims, the survivors, and the families of these horrendous events. You've come a long way in your journey for sensible gun laws, but there's still a long uphill battle. Your involvement in your respective causes shows, because there have been some movement and change. In the name of every gun violence victim, you will not fail. These tragedies bind us together and empower us to make sensible changes. Your work is noble, but it can't be done alone. The names of these victims are etched in your heart and on many lists. To protect our children, our families, and our communities, we must elaborate and collaborate all the concerns. And we need to move forward for the day that we will attend a memorial service where the list has not grown from the prior year. Collectively, we can get this job done, and we will honor those with your actions. Thank you for your time and your commitment to your cause.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now, one of the pillars that many in my community and the whole country at times have leaned on in Newtown. Born and raised in California, Reverend Matt Crebin has served faith-based communities in New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts, and he's been the senior minister now at the Newtown Congregational Church since 2007. He's also the coordinator of the Newtown Interfaith Clergy Association, and he has served as one of the lead organizers of the Vigil program taking place tomorrow. Recently, Reverend Crebin organized a campaign with members of the Newtown Interfaith Clergy Association to draft an open letter to members of Congress to pass legislation to reduce gun violence. Thousands of faith leaders throughout the country signed on to this letter. Since then, Reverend Crebin has worked with a broad coalition of religious and community leaders on strategies to find common-sense solutions to reducing the real-life sorrow, loss, and trauma caused by gun violence within our nation. Reverend Crebin will now offer a few words and then close us with a prayer.
I know that our family members have been holding your pictures for a while, and I invite you not to grow weary, but to hold them high in this moment, that we might all remember. Nearly a year ago, the hearts of our community, Newtown, were broken. And as we cried tears and remembered and celebrated the gifts of beautiful, precious lives that had been offered into our midst and then been taken from us, we also began to realize that the sorrow and the tears that we experienced were sorrows and tears that others were experiencing near and far. Friends, Newtown happens every week in America. Every single week, we lose precious children to guns. And they are beloved and precious and dear, just as precious and loved and dear as our children in our town. And so we come on this day, and we go to the National Cathedral tomorrow with thanks to our host, Dean Hall. We go there to remember and to honor and to commit ourselves to actions which will make a difference, that we might not have families that need cry tears, whether they be in Newtown or Oakland or Atlanta or Chicago or Hartford or anywhere across this land. And since we are in this wonderful testimony to the faith and life of the Spirit, this church of the Evangelical Lutheran Church, I find in a prayer book. I'm a Congregationalist, we don't have prayer books, but we draw upon them every now and again. And here is a prayer of the day as part of the funeral liturgy. I adapt it for this moment. O God of grace and glory, we remember before you today our sisters and brothers. We thank you for giving each one of them to us to know and to love as companions on our pilgrimage on earth. In your boundless compassion, console us who mourn. Give us faith to see that death ultimately is swallowed up in victory through the power of your grace, so that we might live in confidence and hope until you call to us and gather us all. Until that day, precious Lord, may we honor our loved ones with action, and may we now leave this place and let us go forth. Let us go forth into the world in peace, and let us be of good courage, and let us hold fast to all that is good, and render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the afflicted, honor all people, love and serve our God by the power of God's gracious Spirit. And the blessing of that God who sustains us in the midst of our sorrows and summons us forth to build a brighter future. May that God go with us as we leave this place until we meet again. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you to all of you brave, lovely, loving, giving people, and thank you to everybody for coming. That concludes the conference. We hope to see many or all of you at the vigil for all victims of gun violence tomorrow at the National Cathedral. Be in your seats by 3:30. Doors open at 3. Thank you.